What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering all the four major sports leagues, whether that be NBA, NFL, NHL, or MLB, games, news, highlights, all that fun stuff we have planned. But Nick, in today's NBA episode, we're going to be talking about a team that was one of the Final Four remaining last year, and a team that if a couple bounces went their way or they're a little bit more mature, some could argue they may have been going to the finals in a surprise run. But the Indiana Pacers are, a team that surprised a lot of people last year. They were, didn't make the play-in the year before, but then this past year they averaged the most points per game, have the best offensive rating along with the Boston Celtics of all time. So it was a crazy good historic offense that was able to carry them to a top 6 seed. Tyrese Halliburton for the first 2 months did not look human, making it all the way to the in-season tournament finals before losing to the Lakers. But overall, this team surprised a lot of people, beating the Bucks in 6. And then my favorite Tyrese moment was that Game 7 against the Knicks in the second round, where I get it, New York was banged up, but New York really hadn't lost at home all playoffs, and then he just goes in and hits like 4 threes in a row, is chirping back at the fans that were kind of chirping at him. He really showed that all dog mentality. And then unfortunately, he gets injured next round, and Indiana just kind of was outmatched in the clutch. But for the most part, there was also a lot of positives to take away. Even when getting swept, they kind of made, basically, I'd say for 90% of the games, had their way with Boston's defense that was still a top 3 defense in the league, despite losing all those games. They were all very close, right down the wire. But Indiana still, is hoping to get over the hump, and what that's going to take is definitely going to be some youth, and they still have some interesting question marks. But, what is kind of going to be considered a successful season 2024? Is it going back to the ECF? Is it, growing, playing healthier teams and losing in like the second round or something, or just getting better experience? Or is it the young guys like Jarius Walker, top 10 overall pick from last year, if he develops, or Benedict Mathurin comes back and fits in, or Tyrese plays at all NBA level? Nick, I'm curious kind of for Indiana next year, just because they were so young and made a surprise run, kind of like Atlanta Hawks-ish from a couple of years ago. What is like a successful season considered for this team?
I think fans of Indiana and Indiana themselves kind of know that they're not there yet. I think a successful season for them doesn't even have to be going back to the ECF. It's just obviously getting to the playoffs. Like if you go that far, okay, you got to get to the playoffs. But maybe second round, but not just that, but improving on the things that hurt them last year. Late game decision making being, the number one thing that, like you just said, if they had better, late game management or whatever you want to call it, maybe they take that maybe they don't win the series, but maybe they take it to 6 or 7 games. I mean, they really realistically could have gone up 3-0 on the Celtics in all of those games. So I would say if they greatly improve on that just throughout the regular season, like managing the end of games, whether they're up by a little or, just close games, improving on that stuff, not turning the ball over, making the right decisions, not fouling. I think if they improve on that, make it to the playoffs as like a 5 seed, I think that's a win for them. And like win in the first round, maybe, because you'd probably end up playing either the Celtics or the Knicks. And I think a fully healthy Knicks beats this team, any day. Anybody can agree with that. But just get back there and grow. That's, I think, what they're looking for right now is growth, because they're so young. Halliburton's still, 23, 24?
Yeah. And, he's practicing with, Team USA, so getting more experience there and a chance to grow. His game as well. If that, if he just can get consistent offense, attacking the rim, he's obviously got that step back 3 in his bag. If he can be just consistent and not go through, such a slump like he did from, beyond the arc, that'd be, good. But he's still one of the best passers in the league. People were already ready to deem him almost like a top 10 player the way he was playing that first, couple months. But, at the end of the day, it does take, time. So it's going to be interesting to see. But, like I said, I think you nailed it right in the head. It's going to be growth with this team. That is, Tyrese look, take another leap at his game. Jarius Walker, assuming he plays, showed a lot of good things in summer league, averaging like 18 points. But what can he do in a role here? And guys like Bennett Mathurin, who missed most of that last season with shoulder surgery, as he look. Miles Turner, TJ McConnell, can they continue to fit in there more so on the older side? So there isn't much growing from them necessarily, but just being consistent. Miles Turner, especially from 3-point land, getting back to being that really great shot blocker he is. I think overall it's going to be very fun. I think Indiana definitely will be once again like a top 5 offense, just with all the dynamic scores they have. Like Andrew Nimhard, the next step in his game, he showed a lot of flashes against the Celtics. And, just other guys too. Like, I believe it's James Johnson, who was a backup big for them that re-signed. Isaiah Jackson. Sorry, that's his name. Showed a lot of great flashes as a backup big. And, just kind of what can some of the other young guys do to continue to grow to try and take Indiana to the next level. I think will be a huge, will be huge on, their future and what the young guys show, because at the end of the day, I think, some of their players are just going to be the way they are. But obviously, the beauty is they have so many young players, even like Ben Shepherd, who's getting playoff minutes in the ECF in crunch time and then is going into summer league now to play. So it's like, are those guys going to continue to grow? Because if they were arguably just a little bit mature, like you said, that it could have easily been at least a 2-2 series, maybe even 3-1 Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think teams realize that going back to where your season ended, that shouldn't be like the floor now. Like, just because you made it there doesn't mean that it's a failure if you don't get back, because there's plenty of teams. We talked about it with the Spurs. We're not looking for the Spurs to make the playoffs this year. We're just looking for them to show improvement, show growth. Because if Indiana does the same thing they did against the Celtics, where, they're blowing games that they should win, and all that stuff during the regular season, that's when you start getting worried, because it's like, did we not learn anything? Are we not growing as a team? Like, is that on the coach? So that's where I kind of stand with Indiana. I think they definitely have the offense, obviously. Like, their offense gave the Celtics, I would argue, more trouble than any offense in the playoffs, and that's because they were the second best offense in the league behind the Celtics. So I don't have a ton. I don't have a huge expectations for them. I don't think they're going to be a team that's in contention for the East. I think it's the Celtics, the Knicks, maybe the Sixers, and the Bucks. I think those are the top 4 teams, as we showed on the last episode. But I still think Indiana can show improvement without getting back to where they were.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with you. And I think it will be very interesting to see how they continue to learn and improve from their mistakes. But it's going to be very interesting, like I said, in such a top heavy East. Can they compete with some of these heavy hitters? And they did show last year. Granted, the problem is you have to put an asterisk next to it because of injuries and stuff. But can they compete with a full Bucks team with Giannis and Dame healthy and Chris Middleton? How the New York Knicks, if they get Jalen Brunson now, especially with Mikal and OG, it would be extremely hard. But if they can just, like you said, show improvement in regular season, be able to close out games, learn, grow as a team, I think that's where you can deem whether or not it's a successful season or not. Because realistically, if you're Indiana and you win a good amount of games, but you just get a tough draw with like the Knicks or Celtics, in the first or second round, you just got to tip your cap and realize, it's not your time quite yet.
Right. I agree. I agree with your points.
Yeah. But with that being said, they still have a lot to look forward to next season. Just still one of the youngest teams in the league, one of the more exciting ones. And like I said, I'm really curious to see, when Tyrese's moment's called upon. might be today. How he looks for Team USA. He looked really clutch in one of those exhibition games, hitting a couple threes to ice that. So eventually, I feel like every player is going to get some run here. So, it will be very exciting to see. And speaking of that, I also want to give a shout out to Team USA, who has a game today against South Sudan, Nick, where LeBron James needed to score a layup to beat them by 1 point. But to South Sudan's credit, and maybe, a good thing for the United States was they shot absurdly great from 3 last game. So if that can kind of come down a little bit, maybe the United States can help pull away. And they also have KD this time around. So it should be very helpful. But it was already announced, I believe, yesterday or the day before that Jason Tatum will be playing. I think even saw a tweet he might be starting. So that kind of, I don't know what the hell that even means. Like, I get it if he was playing, but at some point, like, the start just feels like forced.
You're right.
Like,
right. Just because he didn't start last game or didn't play last game doesn't mean you need to start him this game. Like,
yeah, just
as long as he comes off the bench, it'll be fine. Like, it's not
get him like 15 minutes. Like, there's going to be room for everyone to play. Like, it'll be curious though if Tyrese's number's called upon for Pacers fans. I bet they want to see him. I bet he'll be able to answer. But, like I said, it's just good experience for him to even be there practicing with the guys and, just getting some good runs in and, learning from some of the best in the game. But speaking of that, that'll also be something, we'll talk about tomorrow, probably the South Sudan game. Can the United States, officially clinch a spot in the quarterfinals? Want to give a shout out to some honorable mention teams that already have was Team Canada, who came back against Australia yesterday in the early morning game. And Team France with Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert and some guys like Batum and Fournier. They had a crazy shot against Japan on like a 4-point play with like 10 seconds left to send it into OT. And then in OT, I was able to tune in on Peacock. It was literally Wembanyama scoring every point, Rudy Gobert getting all the offensive rebounds. So I still feel like, they're definitely not the most skilled team, but having basically home court advantage and just those two bigs, it's going to be tough, I think, for some teams. Like if the United States were to run into them like LeBron or guys that like to drive, I think, would have a nightmare. And I don't even want to picture Embiid trying to score on Wemby in this league rules, just because that'll be another thing. How's Joel Embiid look today compared to, the games before, and KD, coming off an 8-for-9 shooting game? What does he look like today? Should be exciting though. We'll obviously be here to recap. The United States obviously go to the gymnastics team clinching gold, but we're looking for that men's team to bring it home as well. So with that being said,
I was just gonna say, is that game on at 11 o'clock for us?
Oh gosh, I didn't even look at the time. Let's see.
I don't know like the times and stuff. I know the last one was on at 11. That's why I'm wondering.
Yeah, it's always confusing with our
time zone differences and everything.
Yeah, maybe you'll see it before my Wi-Fi because my Wi-Fi is trash. But I'll run it back 3 p.m. Eastern time. So a little bit later in the afternoon today. So anyone on the East Coast, West Coast, it's going to be noon. So that'll be fun. Make sure to tune in. Root for the U.S., obviously, if you're from the U.S. But, South Sudan's got some hoopers. And guys like JT Thor, that'll be, very interesting to see if they can shoot from 3 like they did last game. But as always, we'll be here to recap it tomorrow. But hopefully, like I said, they can clinch a quarterfinals run. But with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and let us know in the comments what you think the Indiana Pacers will be next season and what you would consider a successful season for them. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.